Ghostbusters for the Commodore 64. Growing up, I loved this game. I played it all the time. Of course, eventually I would graduate to Super Mario Bros., Zelda, and Metroid, but this was the one game that I, growing up, sunk my teeth into and played over and over again. I wasn't very good at it, I never beat it, I never mixed up my strategy to see if I could do better each time I played. I just really enjoyed playing it. So if you'll indulge me, let's spend a little bit of time and go through this game. But first, let's talk about this box. The cover has the three main Ghostbusters with the logo nicely placed behind them. No Winston, but this is the same image used on the original poster. The back shows how colorful and detailed the game looks. And the front has this awesome gatefold spread of Vince Clortho as a terror dog. There's one thing I never really understood about the terror dogs. Early in the movie, Louis Tully and Dana Barrett are hunted down by a pair of terror dogs, and they do something to them off screen. Then later in the movie, they're in front of Gozer, and they transform from the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper into terror dogs. So my question is, what happened to the original terror dogs? Are they now new terror dogs? Did they turn into the terror dogs that hunted them down originally? Or were the terror dogs figments of their imagination and they just needed something to push them over to succumb to the possession? Now, that can't be it, because when Venkman visits Dana's apartment, the doorman says that some crazy person brought a bear to a party. Oh, I've tangented. In 1984, a programmer working for Activision named David Crane took an unused Car Wars game and in 6 weeks transformed it into Ghostbusters for the Commodore 64. Activision had purchased the rights to make a game based on Ghostbusters early in production, so much of the game was completed by the time David was actually able to watch the full film. You hear that? Loading up a game on the Commodore 64 was always like a game of Russian roulette. Will it load, or will it just hang on the dreaded blinking red screen of the disk drive? Amazingly enough, after 31 years, this game still loads up. Crane's previous work included Freeway, Grand Prix, Kaboom, Pitfall, and Pitfall 2: The Lost Caverns. And he would go on to work on A Boy and His Blob, a number of Simpsons games, and oddly enough, Home Improvement for the SNES and Night Trap for the Sega CD.
Help me, please! You're the only one that can save me!
Imagine that the year is 1984, and you've just loaded up Ghostbusters for the first time, and this happens. Ghostbusters! Every time I heard that, I got pumped to play this game. Here, wait. Let's listen to it again. Ghostbusters! A real human voice in a home video game on the Commodore 64 was a scientific breakthrough of immeasurable proportions. At least to me. I'm still impressed. I mean, Commodore 64 had 64K of memory. That's not a lot. It's like a 16th of a megabyte. And if the voice isn't enough, check out this hot Ray Parker Jr. Ghostbusters song composed on the glorious Commodore 64 sound interface device. That's a SID chip for us Commodore geeks. And look, it's complete with a bouncing ball for karaoke. Come on, sing along, I'll wait. No, that's not good. Let's hear Mr. Parker Jr.
Who you gonna call?
Ghostbusters!
If it's something weird and it don't look good, who you gonna call?
Ghostbusters!
Well, I wish I could say that Saving the Day, Cleaning Up the Town, and Magic were faithfully recreated as well for the full soundtrack experience, but remember, 64K. This is the only song you get to hear throughout the entire game. It actually gets kind of old after a while. The game is broken down into 8 screens. The title screen, the intro screen, the shopping screen, the city screen, the ghostbusting screen, the driving screen, the marshmallow screen, and the final showdown screen. So let's go through each of these screens. Here we get the general plot of the game. You've decided to start a Ghostbusters franchise in your city, which, if you recall in the movie, was Venkman's big idea. The franchise rights alone will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams. As a matter of fact, the bank is going to advance you $10,000 to help finance your new business. This isn't how it happened in the movie, but maybe in order for David Crane to allow for some creative flexibility, He built this game so that you could experience what it would be like to be a Ghostbuster in your own town. I mean, nothing in the manual says that you are playing as Venkman, Stans, Spengler, or Zeddemore, although the box does feature Venkman, Stans, and Spengler on the cover. Now it's time for you to buy a car and your gear. You have 4 choices of cars: a compact, which is cheap, slow, and holds limited cargo; a hearse, which is of moderate expense, goes a little faster and holds lots of gear; a station wagon, which is expensive, pretty fast, and holds a whole bunch of gear; and finally a high-performance car, which doesn't hold as much gear as a hearse or a station wagon, but is really expensive and goes fast. Before I go too far into this, let's just cut to the chase. As I mentioned earlier, Activision secured the video game rights to Ghostbusters earlier in the production of the movie. They wanted it available for the release of the movie, of course. Crane, rather than writing a brand new video game, took an almost complete Car Wars game and put Ghostbusters on top of it. I gotta imagine that the original Car Wars game was probably like a resource management type of game where you had limited resources available to put weapons and armor and other things on your car, and you had various trade-offs like weight and speed and how much your car could carry. But it actually kind of lends itself nicely to the franchise premise of the game so far. I mean, if this was going to be the Ghostbusters, we would just start off with the hearse. There'd be no reason to show me a Volkswagen, an Oldsmobile, and a Camaro. Next, we buy gear. We have a PK energy detector, an image intensifier, a marshmallow sensor, ghost bait, traps, a ghost vacuum, and a portable laser confinement system. More on those later. You may have already noticed, though, that between the Camaro and the laser confinement system, you don't have enough money to buy everything. Well, I'll give you a hint. If at the end of the game you have more money than what you started with, you'll be given a code to start out your next play session with that amount of money. Now you can create a different, more expensive, customized ghost-busting car. Can you say replay value? So if we carry on with the franchise idea, this would indicate that the original Ghostbusters have set up a store for franchisees to build and customize their own Ghostbusters franchise. Because we know that in the movie they didn't just go to a store. Ray and Egon pretty much invented everything that they had. If you're a true Commodore 64 aficionado, then you probably have one of these. Or maybe even one of these. Through this item selection process, it becomes apparent quite quickly how difficult these things are to use. Take my advice and use one of these. See, back in the day, video game controllers followed what's known as a standard. So you have Park Avenue, Broadway, and a building in the middle called Zool. This sure seems like a replication of New York. It wouldn't really make sense that the Ghostbusters would allow more franchises in their own city. That seems like it would cut into their profits. Not only that, it would appear that Zool is back in town. Or that 55 Central Park West was renamed to Zool. None of that's very likely. I don't think my franchise idea is accurate at all. I'm pretty sure that David Crane was limited by the Car Wars game he had at hand, and because he didn't have total access to the movie, he had to make some stuff up. This is the Overworld screen, and one of the first things you'll notice is that a building begins to flash red. As you move your Ghostbusters symbol to it, little dots are dropped behind you. Effectively, you are marking where your car is going to drive, because when you get to the red flashing building and press your button, you will flip to this screen. For now, this is it. You get to watch the center lines whiz by you. There'll be more on this later, but for now, just sit back and enjoy the soothing sights of the center lines. You'll arrive at the house, drop a trap, and attempt to wrangle the Slimer into the trap. If you capture the ghost, your men will yell, "Ghostbusters!" Which is kinda silly, but remember, it's 1984, so it's awesome! Now, if you miss a ghost, then one of your men will yell, "He slimed me!" Come on! That's pretty rad! It's rad because it's 1984! The ghost will only haunt a house for so long before it gets bored, so if it takes you too long to show up and get set up, the ghost might leave. You might also run out of proton charge, which will automatically set off your trap and cause one of your guys to get slimed if your trap doesn't catch the ghost. He slimed me! You can cross the streams, but if you do, your packs will short out just before total protonic reversal can occur. The quicker you can get to a haunted house, the more money you will get paid. So this is where the game turns into a resource management game. You always have to have at least 2 men available to fight ghosts. Each man slimed becomes unavailable. Your proton packs only have a certain amount of charge, so you'll have to go back to Ghostbusters HQ to charge those up and replenish your men. So let's talk about how to maximize your resources with the gear from earlier. First of all, you need traps. You can't start the game unless you have a trap. Each trap only holds one ghost and needs to be emptied at Ghostbusters headquarters, so you'll need as many traps as you can carry on your car. But wait, remember how I said there was more to the driving than just watching the center lines? As you move from location to location, these yellow ghosts will float in from the corners and head for Zool. Each ghost that makes it to Zool increments the already moving PK energy counter by 100. Once this counter gets to 9,999, or the Keymaster and Gatekeeper meet up, you will head to Zool automatically for the final showdown. In order to maximize your resources, you need to slow that counter down. In order to do so, get a ghost vacuum. With it, you can suck up the ghost that you've passed over. You get no money for sucking up a ghost, just more time to earn money by busting those little green slimers. One gripe that I have with the driving is that it is supposed to represent the path that you took on the Overworld screen. In other words, you're replaying the same path in a different view. However, the PK energy counter continues to count up while you're in this mood. If I'm acting out the motions of the path I drew out in the Overworld, shouldn't the counter be paused until I'm back into the Overworld? Or at least until I get to the house to fight the ghost? This is PK energy double dipping, folks. Now take a look at this ghost busting scene. See how the little Slimer is faded and every now and then disappears? Well, one could assume that this is just a limitation of the graphics of the Commodore 64, but they'd be wrong. This is by design. If you want to see them better, you need to purchase an image intensifier. Now you can see the ghosts all the better. While we're on the subject of busting ghosts, the quicker you can get to a house and bust a ghost, the more money you get paid. If you purchase a PK energy detector, you can find out which houses will be spooked next. It will turn pink as you drive by. So let's put all that together. Early in the game, there isn't much going on except for ghosts floating in from the sides. Move your Ghostbuster icon around the screen, freezing ghosts in their place, and look for the next house to be haunted. Once you find it, drive to it. While driving, suck up the ghosts. When you arrive at the house, there will probably not be a ghost there, but that's okay. You can hang around until it starts flashing and immediately arrive on the scene to bust the ghost and collect $900 instead of $600 or $400. Sometimes you'll get lucky and the ghost will show up just after you arrive. Using this build, we've maximized our earning potential and slowed the PK energy counter. Do this a few more times and you'll have paid for all the extra gear, but don't forget to empty your traps. When the city PK energy gets around 5,000, the floating ghosts will occasionally combine into the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. If this happens and you aren't on the scene to stop him, he will destroy a building and the mayor will charge you $4,000 to cover the damage. Like it's your fault a Marshmallow Man came into town and destroyed a building. Was this a part of your contract when you borrowed that initial $10,000? We need to make sure that we have some gear for these attacks. At the store we saw a marshmallow sensor. This works similar to the PK energy detector in that will highlight a building in white that is destined for a marshmallow attack. Another piece of equipment at your disposal is the ghost bait. The bait will draw the floating ghost to wherever you are. While you can use the bait at any time, it's best to use it when you see the marshmallow alert at the bottom of the screen because you are limited to 5 uses. This will cause the ghosts that are about to form the Marshmallow Man to go to you in order for you to stop the attack. For this, the mayor awards you $2,000. The last piece of gear is the portable laser confinement system. For the low price of $8,000, you can own this thing. It would be awesome if it kept your proton packs fully charged and allowed you to store all of your ghosts, thus eliminating the need to go back to Ghostbusters HQ unless you get slimed, but it doesn't do that. All it does is store 10 ghosts. The idea being that you buy one trap in this thing and you only have to go to the Ghostbusters HQ every 10th time. So my preferred build is the hearse with the ghost vacuum, the ghost bait, the image intensifier, the PK energy detector, and as many traps as I can fit on the back. The marshmallow sensor doesn't really make much sense if you have the ghost bait, and the laser confinement system is too expensive to ever pay for itself. Remember, this game is all about resource management. So you've been playing hard, busting ghosts, stopping the Marshmallow Man, and now you're being forced to Zool's. You're being brought to Zool's because the Keymaster and Gatekeeper have finally met. You may or may not have noticed, but throughout the game, a little key and a little lock have been wandering around throughout the game. This is the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper. This is a bit odd because we know that the Gatekeeper is Zool, and in the movie, Zool never leaves her building. Yet in this game, we have a building called Zool, and the Gatekeeper is running around the city. Well, whatever. Anyway, they meet up anywhere between 7,400 and 9,999 PK energy. When you get to Zool's, you'll see a Marshmallow Man jumping back and forth. Your goal is to slip 2 Ghostbusters past the Marshmallow Man and up to the 22nd floor. Getting past the Marshmallow Man is not easy. Once 2 men are squashed, the game is over and you need to start from the beginning. This is cruel punishment since it will take another 20 to 30 minutes of gameplay for another shot at the Marshmallow Man. And you need to make a pixel-perfect move to get by him. In fact, for this review, I played the game 6 times and couldn't get a single man by. By now, you might think that you know what the goal of this game is. If you think that the goal of this game is to save the city, capturing 1 ghost at a time, and ultimately facing off with the Marshmallow Man and Gozer to save the city, maybe even the world, you'd be wrong. Nope, the point of this game is to make more money than what you started with. In fact, if by the time the Marshmallow Man shows up at Zool's, you haven't made more money than what you started with, you are not allowed to face Gozer. It's as if the mayor looks at you and says, "No thanks, don't need your assistance. If you can't be trusted to pay back your loans, how can we possibly trust you to save our city fighting Gozer and the Marshmallow Man? Nope. Thank you and good day. We'd rather see the city perish." And with that, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man destroys the city. So if you lose the game by not making it past the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, your credit limit is extended to the amount of money you had at the end of the game. Did you catch that? Your credit limit. So when you start a new game with all your newfound riches, it's still just credit. The bank expects you to pay all of that back by the end of the game. What kind of dystopian corporatocracy is this? The entire point of this game is to make as much money as possible, saving the town from ghosts, and then giving all of the money, including the $2,000 reward money that came from the city's treasuries, back to the bank. So to break this down, if you're on your second playthrough and you spend $23,000 on the high-performance car with the portable laser confinement system, you'll need to make sure that you've earned back at least $23,000 before the Gatekeeper and Keymaster meet. I'm not saying it can't be done, but my best game was an earning of $26,000, but I had to have the image intensifier, vacuum, and PK energy detector, which is another $1,700 in equipment. So this really makes the accumulation of any credit beyond $25,000 pointless because you'll be hard-pressed to earn all of that money back to fight Gozer. There is even a cheat that allows you to start with $1 million, but what's the point? The most tricked out car is only going to cost you $24,700, and in order to get a shot at Gozer, you'd need to end the game with at least $1,100,000. Anyway, if you do make all your money back and get past the Marshmallow Man, then the game goes on autopilot and you zoom up to the 22nd floor to blast away a gate. I guess this is accurate. I mean, in the movie, they shot at Gozer once, but the thing that actually saved the city was crossing the streams and shutting down the portal. Just seems a little anticlimactic. You are congratulated and given $5,000 more credit for your next playthrough. And that's it. Yeah, more credit. You just hand that reward money right over to the bank. When this game was released in 1984, it was generally met with some positive reviews and scores. Ernie Hudson, however, did go on record as saying that his kids hated it and thought the game sucked. I have to imagine that the kids booted up the game, took a look at the 3 characters, and said, "Dad, are you sure you're in this game?" Anyways, I think the lack of Winston in this game can be forgiven because David Crane was probably not given much more than some early production stills and maybe a list of cast members. In fact, take a look at some of the early Ghostbusters publicity images and you'd be hard-pressed to find Ernie Hudson anywhere. Anyways, despite this game really being about slaving away to a corrupt financial system, I do enjoy the heck out of it. But we're not done yet. Come back next time because we're going to talk about these games.